Welcome to BizTech's Asia's Hottest Startup Show, the show where we feature hot startups across Asia, sharing their entrepreneurial journeys and sharing with us the journey towards becoming Asia's tech unicorns. Now, today we feature a very different company, a company that's been very successful already and is just listed on the New York Stock Exchange at the end of September. Now, we're talking about MoneyLion, an award-winning, data-driven digital financial platform. Now, here to tell us about MoneyLion is its co-founder, who happens to be Malaysian, and its Chief Technology Officer, Foong Chee Mun. Chee Mun, welcome to the show, and congratulations on your listing on the New York Stock Exchange.
Thank you very much, Brian, and glad to be here.
Now, Chee Mun, let's start by you telling us more about MoneyLion and what you actually do.
MoneyLion is a financial platform. What we want to do is it's good to start from like the beginning of the journey of MoneyLion, so that you know where we come from. The CEO of the company and the other co-founder of the company, when we first met when we were teenagers, both of us were researchers at a lab, at the AI lab at Purdue University. So fast forward 12 years, I just sold my company, which was an AI research boutique company, to a much bigger defense contractor. It was called Simulac. And what we did is that we thought of bringing the forefront, and this is like 8 or 9 years ago, we thought of bringing the forefront of technology and artificial intelligence into consumer finance. And that was at the tail end of the financial crisis in the United States. We saw a lot of major banks are retreating from the middle Americans, and we thought there was a big opportunity to move into the space. And this is how we got into the whole business, and that's our thesis to the company that we have built.
Okay, and your geographical focus has been very much US centric. Am I correct? What sort of user numbers do you have, and what do they do with MoneyLion?
We started in the US because I was living in the US at the time. These are Americans, so we started in the US, and we are extremely US centric for now. We do have other geographical ambition, but that will be the focus of another questions. What we provide is that when we first started the company, we thought of what the most regular banks are depriving the middle Americans of credit. They retreated a lot from the credit need of the middle Americans. So what we did is that we started with credit. And after we started with credit to a certain scale, we thought about, okay, credit is just one part of your financial life. What we want to do is to provide, just because we are very good at analytics and artificial intelligence ourselves. So what we want to do is to provide tools for the users to manage their life. So the second thing that we released was a PFM, a personal finance management tool for the users to, in one click or in one view, are able to situate themselves of their financial situation, and potentially will automatically give advice what to do, what not to do, how to spend better, how to save better, and what kind of insurance that they might need to cover their lives better.
Now, obviously, when you explain this now, it seems very normal, but this was many years ago.
Yes.
So that was quite innovative at the time. Walk us through some of the key milestones, because obviously you've been growing at a torrid pace in the last 2 years. But when you started the business, what were some of the key milestones in your growth journey?
Actually, the PFM, that was like at the beginning of MoneyLion, and then the third thing that we started doing was we thought it might make sense to not just borrow from MoneyLion. It might make sense to be able to save money from or deposit your money from MoneyLion into MoneyLion as well. So we started a deposit account, and then subsequently we had like a debit card and potentially a credit repair product. In the United States, credit score is extremely important. So a lot of times when people fall into hard times, their credit scores are being affected. So what we want to do is to have certain product that allow them to fix their own credit scores And then the last thing is that cash advance products, where we have this zero APR cash advance product that a lot of times when people get into financial crunch, it becomes a cycle because of the high APR loans that these guys are being subjected to. So we just thought that what might make sense for these guys is that instead of charging them an high APR, we thought, let's charge them 0% APR and let them pay whatever that they are able to pay and or can afford to pay. So
okay, then how do you make money out of this then when the banks couldn't make money?
In this particular case, it's by tipping. So that's why it is based on the what the users are willing to pay rather than what the users have to pay. So which is a new concept. And that product, however, has grown to be our biggest product in MoneyLion as of now.
So that was a differentiator. That was one of the key differentiators which helped you to grow that.
I think the key differentiator in MoneyLion is actually the whole ecosystem, everything that we have done, and how the cash advance, the level of the deposit account, how that level of the personal finance management and the other loan products that we have.
Okay, so walk us through then, if you can recall back, what were some of the key success factors? If you look back now, key success factors at MoneyLion, what did you do right?
I think one of the main thing that we did right was being extremely data driven, and with that is that just because the company was founded, half of the company was founded by a data scientist, so which means that a lot of the decisions are driven by data, and when there are no data, it was driven by extremely systematic experimentation procedures. So, and I think that is the clear differentiator of MoneyLion. And we did not have a business before and tried to lay analytics on top of it. Analytics was built in from day one. So in MoneyLion, you can see a lot of products, and especially the biggest products that we have. The product strategy were driven by the analytics department rather than the business department. So I think that is a huge differentiator of MoneyLion than almost any other fintech companies out there, or even banks out there. And the second, I personally think as one of our biggest differentiator is the fact that whatever problem that we have are solved 24 hours. Like MoneyLion as a company just simply doesn't sleep, because it's headquartered in New York, and we have a big office in Kuala Lumpur, more than about 270 people at this point. And whenever New York go to sleep, KL is waking up and solves the same problem that was being handed off from New York and vice versa. So I think that's one of our superpower as well. Okay,
now that's interesting. It's a superpower, but I'm sure one of the key things that helped your execution in MoneyLion was the fact that you built and sold Simulacs. Could you share with us your journey at Simulac, and what did you learn from Simulac that allowed you to execute better at MoneyLion?
Simulac is a very interesting experience. It's an AI research boutique, which means that we're in this particular niche technology of artificial intelligence called agent-based modeling. We predicted human behavior outcome of in a community or in a city or in a family in the next 10 years, in the next 50 years. So at that time, Dee and I thought that it might be interesting to bring this kind of predictions into a consumer finance business, because if you think about a consumer finance businesses, it's all about predictions. What kind of product this person might need during different time of the year, different day of the time of the day, and different phase of their lives. So So this is one of the predictions. The other prediction is creditworthiness. Creditworthiness is a hugely predictive activity. At this point, a lot of banks or a lot of financial institutions are using potentially a human underwriter or a committee of risk people to determine that. In MoneyLion, we do it 100% using artificial intelligence. And the interesting thing with MoneyLion is that even when we first started, we weren't very confident of this kind of technology in financial industry. So what we did is that we hire human underwriters, and we have our AI scores. And the human underwriter look at the AI scores and decide. So after about 2 years time, what we did is that we started to look at like maybe the top 20% of the users or the segment that the human underwriters are always agreeing with the machines. And we just say, okay, those top 20%, we'll just do it automatically. And as you can imagine, we just continuously be doing like the top 20%. And nowadays we have 0 human underwriter. We just get it. And what happened after we eliminated the human underwriter workforce is that the loan volume actually increased more than 100 times, simply because now you don't have the HR problem. You only need to dial up your AWS bill, and and your workforce is doubling, tripling.
Yes. Now, one of the things you talk about workforce, what struck me is you talked about MoneyLion not sleeping because you've got people in New York and you've got people in Malaysia. You've got 270 people in Malaysia. Talent is a big issue globally, whether it's Silicon Valley, whether it's New York, whether it's Malaysia, whether it's Singapore. What made you start up operations in Malaysia? And
Okay.
Tell us about your technology. You have a technology center of excellence here. Tell us about it.
Okay, I want to say that there was it was a grand design that we thought with, but the truth is that it is not. It all started because my wife was pregnant with our child, and we decided to move back to Kuala Lumpur for 2 years, just to be closer to the family, with the intention of moving back to New York. That's what we told all of our investors. But after 2 years, we have decided that Kuala Lumpur was a much different place than what we left about 12 years ago. And we decided that we like it. And at the time, we had about like 40 people in our Kuala Lumpur workforce. So we made that as an excuse to be able to stay in Kuala Lumpur as well. So it's always nice to see how Dee was having a hard time explaining to the investors why she is decided to stay in Kuala Lumpur. But we were pleasantly surprised. We were pleasantly surprised with the depth of talent in Kuala Lumpur. 90% of our engineering workforce are in KL, and 100% of our AI workforce are in KL. So and we are at the forefront of running a digital finance platform with artificial intelligence. And this shows you how the kind of product that KL talent is able to build.
So Chee Mun, this is the story that you've just told us is not an unfamiliar story. And it's a story really of Malaysia being completely under the radar in terms of tech talent and affordable tech talent as well.
That's why I don't want this to be public. I just want so that I can keep it to ourselves.
Now, Chee Mun, I'm going to ask you now. Obviously, MoneyLion, it's public knowledge. Malaysia is going to issue digital banking licenses next year. And if you look at all those graphs and of partnerships and alliances, you will always find MoneyLion there in the equation. Now, walk us through your strategy out of the US and how Malaysia plays a role in that, and Southeast Asia as well.
Okay. Without going to the specifics, because the specific have different compliance sensitivity to it. We are extremely bullish on the region of Southeast Asia, and we, being a company that was being built in Malaysia since almost day one, extremely interested in expanding into Southeast Asia in multiple avenues, as a tech provider or even as an operator of a digital bank. So it's definitely something that we are keenly looking into. South America is some place that we are keenly looking into as well. But definitely the next geographical of interest will be in Southeast Asia, simply because we are very familiar with it. We have a lot of partners that and for the matter, investors that have been asking us if we are willing to come to this part of the world.
Okay, now that's one area of expansion and growth. The other area, and this is highlighted in your investor guidance document just after the IPO, is new areas of growth, and very clearly pointed out. Not included in that is cryptos and buy now, pay later. Tell us about that as new areas of growth for you.
We think buy now, pay later is a very nice area to grow into, simply because there is a changing of behavior of especially the younger generation. They generally distrust credit card because the credit card were done in such a way that, you know, underwriting cannot be done in real time manner, and it was done in such a way that people can easily overspend and thus be incurring high cost. And I think the buy now, pay later chassis is the right way for the younger people to think about their finances. It's real time. It's less of a credit economy. It's more of a debit economy. And I think a lot of the younger people will be less likely to get into mounting debt with this kind of mechanism. And MoneyLion, we do it in such a way that it's not merchant specific. We do it in such a way is that it's through our bank account. Once you spend the money, you can break it into like 4 payments or 5 payments or whatnot, and with no cost to it. So that's something that we are extremely excited about.
Okay.
And crypto, that's my personal pet project, and I personally think that most of the decentralization has to be the future of finance, simply because if you look at the banks from a security standpoint, if they get hacked, it presents a very big systemic risk to the system and the users. In a decentralized network, it's less likely a centralized database is gonna get hacked. So to us, there is a big upside on decentralizations, and from a crypto investment standpoint, as you can see, the expansion, especially during the COVID era, there is an expansion of money, especially in US dollar. I'm not sure in ringgit, but definitely in US dollar.
Yes.
So that point to the risk of hyperinflation, and well, maybe not hyperinflation, but general inflation itself.
So you don't subscribe to the Jack Dorsey point of view.
Yes, not to that level, but you do see a lot of evidence to higher inflations, and I think crypto, simply because it is being technologically constrained, that the supply of it, that I think is a good hedge against inflation in general.
Now, what besides buy now, pay later and cryptos, what are some fintech trends that you see perhaps for 2022 and beyond?
Like I say, I think some of the decentralization can be interesting, where especially from a data standpoint, we in MoneyLion are extremely protective about the user's privacy, and so unlike most of the advertising platform, we don't share the user's privacy with third parties. to a certain degree, obviously, you have to share it with the credit underwriting agencies and stuff like that, right? So, so decentralization, we think, is extremely important. Where if you look into Web3, if your data are being held on by your own Web3 wallet or identity, then you can withdraw those information whenever you want. So that is something that we are extremely bullish on. Secondly, is that we think the financial institution of the future has to be almost be invisible, has to be near the life of the users. So which means that we need to be embedded in potentially when the user are buying things or when they are enjoying their entertainment. That's where we need to be embedded into. And so how do we get into the multiple facets of the user's life, not just financial life, but the user's life in general? Because I think finance is about life.
Interesting. Now, Chee Mun, you have 2 successful companies that you've built. What are 3 things that you would have done differently with the benefit of hindsight?
It's interesting. I think one of the things that this is the first time I run a company of this kind of scale, and to me is that if I would have defined like the boundary of different groups better, and pay more attention to different decisions that I have to make while growing, because scaling is a non-trivial activity on Davia, and pay more attention to the brittleness of the team when we were scaling. That could be big lessons to a lot of entrepreneurs. Actually, it's always a good thing that you grow, but instead of just focusing on the business, you have to focus on the team as well. How do you grow the team correctly? How do you identify where the cracks of the team when you go in such a high speed?
Yeah, and Chee Mun, and that's something I want to drill down a little bit, because those are great takeaways. When you scale, one of the things is the fact that perhaps the skill sets of the team in a smaller company may not fit that of a larger company. Is that what you're meaning by in terms of the fractures in the team?
Well, that's part of it. That's part of it. There are some people that you hire from day one that in fact will grow with the company, and that is the company growth and the personal growth of the person as well. And unfortunately, there are certain people that are unwilling or unable to grow with the company, and those are the kind of people that you might have to repurpose to potentially a smaller role or more specific role. So that's one of them. But secondly is that when you have a much bigger company, when I had a company of like 10 people, I can go to dinner like 3 times a week with them, understanding their personal lives and their concerns and stuff like that. But once you start from like 50 people to 100 people, it is impossible to do that. So what that means is that you need to have processes. You need to have processes in order to have like second level, third level people to be able to do what you did when you have a company of 10 people. And when that is well defined, you will be able to grow a lot peacefully than some of us experience.
And what about a third thing?
A third thing is to be it's something that we know, but potentially did not practice as much in our initial years, is to be hugely customer centric, and that is something that we have learned and be over invested in customer centricity from both front, from analytics front, where you have the data scientists to look into the user data as much as possible to understand their experience, to understand their pain points and whatnot. And there is nothing to beat a good customer service team, where if they have problem, they'll reach out to the customer service operations people, and there has to be a very good process from the customer service operations people that that propagate the information back to the product managers, the engineers, the data scientists, and whatnot.
Now, Chee Mun, it's been a fascinating conversation. Any final thoughts and words of wisdom you'd like to leave us with before we end the conversation?
I just think that the endeavor in startups is extremely enriching, and I think it solves a lot of problems. And I would like to see a country in Malaysia to have more startup, to have more successful startup, and to solve real societal problems.
Now, Chee Mun, thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
Thank you, Brian.
Now, we've been speaking to Foong Chee Mun, the co-founder and chief technology officer at MoneyLion Inc. I'm Brian Fernandez on BizTech's Asia's hottest startup show. This video will be available on our video and podcast social media platforms, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe our various platforms. Thanks again for tuning in.